the 3 reasons why Atari collapsed, and the third is quite shocking. Today, the video game industry is worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Consoles from companies like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo dominate living rooms around the world. But long before those companies entered the scene, one company had already built the entire gaming industry from scratch. That company was Atari. Its arcade machines filled game halls, its home console appeared in millions of living rooms, and for a moment, Atari looked unstoppable. But only a few years later, the entire video game industry collapsed. So how did the company that created the gaming boom end up at the center of one of the biggest crashes in entertainment history? This is the rise and fall of Atari. Atari was founded in 1972 by entrepreneur Nolan Bushnell and engineer Ted Dabney. At the time, video games were still a strange and experimental concept. Computers existed, but most people had never interacted with digital entertainment. Bushnell believed that simple interactive games could become hugely popular if placed in public spaces. Soon after founding the company, Atari released a simple arcade game called Pong. Pong was extremely simple. 2 paddles, a bouncing ball, and the goal was to keep the ball from passing your side of the screen. But the game was incredibly addictive. Arcade machines filled with players eager to try it. And suddenly, a brand new entertainment industry had begun. Throughout the 1970s, Atari became one of the biggest names in arcade gaming. The company released hit after hit. Arcades across the world filled with Atari machines, and crowds gathered to compete for high scores. The company quickly realized something important. People didn't just want to play games in arcades, they wanted to play them at home. That realization led to one of Atari's most important inventions. In 1977, Atari released one of the most influential consoles in gaming history, the Atari 2600. Unlike earlier home systems that could only play a single built-in game, the Atari 2600 used interchangeable cartridges. This meant players could buy new games without replacing the entire console. It was a revolutionary idea. Soon, living rooms across America had Atari consoles connected to televisions. Games like Space Invaders, Asteroids, and Missile Command became massive hits. By the early 1980s, Atari was dominating the home gaming market. At its peak, the company generated billions of dollars in revenue. Video games had officially become a global phenomenon. But success brought new challenges. As Atari grew, many other companies wanted to join the booming video game market. Suddenly, dozens of new game publishers appeared, and many of them began producing games for the Atari 2600. Unfortunately, quality control was almost non-existent. Hundreds of poorly made games flooded the market, retail stores filled with titles that were rushed, buggy, or simply not fun. One game became particularly infamous. It was based on the blockbuster movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial. The Atari version of the game was developed in just a few weeks and released for the holiday season. But the result was confusing and frustrating for players. Millions of copies were produced, but many remained unsold. The game quickly became a symbol of the industry's growing problems. By 1983, the gaming market had become completely saturated. Too many consoles, too many games, and too many low-quality titles. Consumers began losing confidence in the entire industry. Retailers were stuck with huge inventories of unsold games. Sales collapsed. This event became known as the video game crash of 1983. Many gaming companies went bankrupt almost overnight, and Atari, once the leader of the industry, was hit especially hard. The company lost hundreds of millions of dollars. Its reputation was damaged, and its dominance disappeared almost as quickly as it had arrived. While Atari struggled to recover, new competitors were preparing to enter the market. In 1985, Nintendo launched the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America. Nintendo introduced strict quality control for games and rebuilt consumer trust in home consoles. Soon, companies like Sega also joined the market with new systems. The gaming industry was reborn, but Atari was no longer the leader. Instead, the company became just one competitor among many. Throughout the late 1980s and 1990s, Atari attempted several comebacks. The company released new consoles such as the Atari Jaguar, which was marketed as the world's first 64-bit gaming system. But these systems struggled to compete with consoles from Nintendo, Sega, and later Sony. Gradually, Atari faded from its once dominant position. The company changed ownership multiple times and shifted towards software publishing. Today, the Atari name still exists, but the company is far smaller than it once was. Atari's story is one of the most important chapters in video game history. It helped invent arcade gaming, it created one of the first successful home consoles, and it introduced millions of people to video games for the very first time. But rapid success, poor quality control, and an industry-wide crash changed everything. The company that built the early video game empire ultimately lost control of it. Still, Atari's legacy lives on. Because every modern console, from PlayStation to Xbox, exists partly because Atari proved that video games could become a global industry. And sometimes, the pioneers who build the future aren't the ones who end up ruling it.